Okay, let's go. Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
How you doing, Dad?
Okay, Steve. We've had a very, very rainy day today, I might say. We went out this morning, Mum and I, and then lunchtime, it tipped down. It's been tipping down all afternoon. I thought people would like to know that.
If in doubt, just talk about the weather.
Yeah, I'm all right though. We're fine. Yeah.
Good. So we are actually, for the first time, streaming this podcast recording live. So we should be live on YouTube and Facebook. Hello to everyone that is joining us. We thought, well, we were gonna record a podcast anyway, and I thought, well, what we'll do is what we've been talking about for ages, and we thought we'd live stream it. So if you're tuning into us live, hello and welcome. If you're joining us late and you're listening to the recording back, then you've not missed out. We're just testing out streaming it live and recording it live, and then the recording will be available later. So this week we've got a question to talk about, and we've also got a finished picture, which if people tune into the live that we did on Friday, sorry, I'm the one now with a frog in my throat. It's usually you. But yeah, if people tuned into us before, they would have seen, we did like a little test recording. They would have seen this finished clouded leopard picture on your desk, but we're going to talk about it anyway. But first, I thought I would bring up a question from one of your students over on Udemy, and I thought it would be a good one to talk about, and you could sort of share your response and your answer on the podcast. So this came from Meg on Udemy. Greetings. I have a question. I've finished several of Colin's courses so far, and I was wondering if I needed to put my signature or not on every picture. Would you kindly please send me some advice? For instance, here are some of my drawings that I did following your courses. And the pictures that Meg has shared have been absolutely wonderful. She's doing really, really well. But does Meg need to put a signature on everyone?
Well, you don't have to. Quite some time, I wasn't putting signatures on my work. Once I was selling, anything that was destined for sale and commissions, I did. But otherwise, no, I didn't bother for a while. But then I decided to do so. And recently, well, certainly the last 5-10 years must be, I don't know, I have been putting them on because I think people like to see, first of all, me put one on. And then I think it's something that is nice to do. So I would definitely suggest you do that. Now, you put your signature on. And there's a lot of controversy. If I was doing a picture, like, for instance, I've done a copy of John Constable's picture and a couple of other famous artists in my master class. And I put Colin Bradley after John Constable, etc. Now, you don't have to do that. Forget me altogether. As far as we're concerned, as far as the whole setup is concerned, we're doing this for you, and I'm doing the pictures for you to copy and learn. And then if you do the same kind of quality that Meg's been doing, as I've seen some of her work, then I think that it is deserved that you put your signature on, your signature.
Lovely. Excellent. Well, thanks, Meg, and continue doing the fantastic work that you're doing. Another example of just how well your students are doing following your courses.
I'm gobsmacked, Steve, sometimes when I see the work. I really am. I never thought when I started out doing this we'd have that kind of quality. This is the reason why you're going to see another picture in a minute or two that I've pushed the boat out. And now I've got a lot of confidence that people will be able to do the pictures, even though they are pretty hard.
Well, let's talk about the clouded leopard, the finished picture. I'm just going to open that on my computer and bring that up on screen now, so hopefully everyone can see it. Where is it? There it is. Right, you should be able to see that on your screen, and there's your signature as well in the bottom right. The first thing that struck me when I saw this is just how real those rocks, and you teased those rocks for us last week, just how real they were going to be. And I've got to say as well, this looks even better in person. I saw it in person when I came down, and I think we got some good close-ups of it, of the original, and I do think it looks much better in real life. But these rocks at the bottom, they look so real. Talk to us about that, Dad.
Well, I did tell you that it was going to be difficult, and on the video instruction, I say that right at the beginning, before I've done anything. This is going to be a tough one, particularly the rocks. Now, why is it, you say? Well, they don't have any form as such. You know, if you've got the leopard, you've got the nose, you've got the mouth, you've got the eyes, you can see it. And all you've got to do is do a reasonable job of it, and it looks like a clouded leopard. Rocks don't look like rocks. I don't know how clever you are. They don't look like rocks. Now, I can't really explain why that is, but I found right from the beginning when I first started, I was not told rocks were hard, like I'm telling you. I was not told that trees were a nightmare. But so because I wasn't told that, I went ahead and did it. And it wasn't until I started teaching, first of all in my classes, and then on the instruction from the Colin Bradley Art, we had people come back to us, that I realised that it wasn't as easy as I thought it was. And I can't tell you why. It's all to do really with being able to not to break the mold effectively. If you try to draw a rock, even if you're copying it, as you see it, it all looks artificial. And so what you have to do with that and trees and a lot of foreground when I use it in earth and stones and so on, you have to work your pencil in a haphazard way. You know, with the clouded leopard particularly, you have a structure. You've got to keep to that. If you don't, it's not going to look like a clouded leopard. Well, you can't do that when you've got those rocks and such like. You have to think differently. You have to think with a kind of abandonment. It's all very well for me to say it, but it ain't easy to do.
I'm just zooming in on this area here because this looks incredibly realistic. But how do you go about drawing like this specific section here? It's so vague.
Yeah, I tell you what it is, Steve. You're not drawing it; you're creating it. Now you think, well, what's the difference between drawing and creating? Well, creating is trying to create the impression of the rock. Drawing it is like you do when you're drawing any other subject, like a jam jar and something like that. You've got a structure you can follow. Rocks, you don't have that. Now, on the original picture, I haven't got that to show you actually, but on the original picture, it didn't look like that quite. Same idea, but didn't quite look like that. Now, the reason that is because I deliberately don't make it the same, because if I did, I'd be following that trap that I told you earlier, following a precision. You can't do that. You've got to create it. So first of all, you put the lighter color. That lighter color you can see there is a grey. It's 233. If anybody's taken any note, it's 233, which is a middle to darkish bluey grey, and that goes on the first all over. Now bear in mind I put a few lines in just to give me an idea of where I want the darker areas to go. Once that's in, then you start building your dark colours up. And it's the dark colours that create that contrast between the two. Now, this doesn't happen straight away. You find you have to work a little bit on it. And then the other thing I've mentioned several times, you go back to it. I get to a certain stage and I say, okay, I'll leave that for a minute, go off somewhere else. Then I come back. And when you come back, whenever you return to an area, you see it slightly differently. You think, oh, yeah. Particularly if you're stuck, if you get stuck, you think, oh, this is not working out. Leave it. Go off somewhere else and do something else. Or go and have a cup of tea. Come back to it. When you come back to it, it doesn't look quite as bad as that first impression you had. Now that, I'm not saying that's going to be very helpful to people, but that's how I work.
I also want to pick up this area here. I think you discussed it on the live stream that we did on Friday. Talk to us about that little bit of interest, because I think that just breaks everything up.
And that's exactly what it does. It wasn't there. I've invented that. Now the reason I did, because it was a perfect place for it. A crack in a rock. What comes through a crack in a rock? A little bit of weed or vegetation. So I just twiddled it around and did it. Once again, something like that, you think, well, that's easy to do. You try to copy that, you wouldn't be able to do it. If I tried to copy it, I wouldn't be able to do it. You've got to look at the structure, think, if I start off with a medium green, and then I put some lighter greens and then darker greens. See the process? And then I put just a little bit of ochre in there as well. And then it's created. So if I did it again, it wouldn't look quite the same. Same idea.
It's interesting because it's random, and leaves and rocks are random. So you're like being the leaf, aren't you? You're being the rock in creating a random invention of structure. But I think it feels like it's still quite hard for it to be random and like realistic looking.
It's very hard. As I said, all I can do is ever do is warn people. This is going to be hard. Get your expectations low to start with. But this is what I was talking about when we introduced this. You know, it's no good keep doing the same old thing. You've got to push people just a little bit. And I know that it would be very unlikely that somebody, certainly people you know that haven't done a lot of experience to do that, would actually do that at all. It would be very hard. But this is a picture that is in the advanced area. And to do it, even the clouded leopard, I felt that wasn't easy. You know, I had to keep returning, as I've said last time we were here, I had to keep returning to the dark markings. When you first put them in, you think, oh, well, that's all right. Then you go back to, oh, no, that doesn't look quite right.
I'm just going to just zoom in at the dark markings and the ear that you mentioned before previously that you would keep sort of going back to as well. And that, when did you go back to it for the last time? Did you know that I'm going back to this picture for the last time? Like to this bit of the picture?
I think it would be, yes. Yes, I would think like that. Because not only are you having to develop this over a period of time, keep returning to it, you get to a point where you can overdo something. You could spoil a picture. People probably don't know this, but when I first started out in my art, I used to spoil almost every picture I did because I overworked it. I kept going, oh no, this isn't right. I think I'll carry it. No, that's still not right. Oh, I rub it out. I'll start again. That's fatal. As soon as you start getting to that, you're in Queer Street, as I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me on that. So what you do as you get more experience, you get to a point you think, that's it. I wouldn't say down pencils, but that's what I would do. I wouldn't actually touch it again, unless I was instructing people. Actually, we did actually put some more white in that, didn't we? Because that picture was the original one I sent you.
Yeah.
Do you remember I said, but I was very careful to make sure that I put the white where the white should be, and it wouldn't have made a lot of difference. But generally speaking, I wouldn't do any more to it. As far as I'm concerned, that ear is as good as we're going to get it.
So we've had a question come in, because we can take your questions live as well whilst you're watching. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chats. I'm monitoring YouTube and Facebook, so we hopefully will pick up your comments. But Tova has joined and said, "Is this coloured pencil?"
No. Well, it's a pencil with colour in it, but it's a pastel pencil. The difference between a pastel pencil and a coloured pencil, let's just pull one out at random here. This is a pastel pencil. Now, this has got pastel lead in it. Now, the thing about this, and the clever thing when they first designed this, if you put soft pastel in there, it will crumble away as soon as you put it on the paper.
Could you show the camera? Sorry, Dad, we can't quite see it at the camera end. Can you show the camera, the pencil? That's it. Yeah, good. Perfect. Yeah, just so that we could see. Yeah, that's it.
How's that? Is that all right?
Yeah. Well,
that's the lead. I call it lead. It's not lead. It's pastel. It's like soft pastel, but hardened, so that, because otherwise it will crumble, especially when you sharpen something like that. Because I use a blade. Pencil sharpeners don't really work very well. I use a blade. Any blade will do. Stanley knife. I use a safety blade, razor blade, and you can. If this was soft pastel, it would break as soon as you started doing it. Some pastel pencils are not as good as this. This is a Faber-Castell, and some pastel pencils do tend to break if you get the sort of less expensive ones. But Faber-Castell is my favourite of all, and although I've got another 3 different makes as well, which I do use, but that's a pastel pencil, not a coloured pencil. I haven't got a coloured pencil I can show you at the moment, but I do have them, and I have worked them. But
let's see if I have one anywhere. Don't think I have one either. Just having a little look to see if I've.
Well, I could go and find one, but it means breaking off.
No, I've only got pastel pencils here, I think. Yeah, I've got pastel pencils here.
Never mind.
But they're slightly different anyway.
I know what we're talking about. But anyway, it's a pastel pencil, not a coloured pencil, traditional colour pencil. And the difference here is that with this, you can erase it. If you put it on and you want to erase it, I'm talking about you shouldn't erase. Well, sometimes you do. You have to. You can erase. But coloured pencils are more difficult to get off. Once you make your mark with them, you're kind of stuck with it. I hope that helps.
Yeah. There you go. Oh, a follow-up question. Would you like pastel pencil over coloured pencil, better than coloured pencils? I think for those reasons, right? Because you can layer them and you can easily erase them. Yeah, with coloured pencils, you have to use a solvent to blend, don't you?
I'm just going to show you that. You've got it right there. Use a solvent. This is a solvent. Am I in the right angle now?
Yeah.
This is a solvent, and I have, and there's examples on our site where I've used coloured pencils, and you use a solvent, but it's not easy to use. I've got to tell you. You put it on with a paintbrush, but I've done some very, very successful work that way. But I prefer the pastel pencil though. That's my.
And I think if this is interesting to you, Tova, head on to our website and go to which you can go to by going to colinbradleyart.com. And and click on some of the free classes, because we have pastel pencil basics and colored pencil basics classes, which sort of run through all the materials, Dad's approach, some of the differences, and they're a really good introduction into Dad's way of working and the different mediums that he uses. So definitely check that out. Lovely. Well, yeah, this picture is looking absolutely fantastic and incredibly realistic. The background is kind of a merge between interest and not detail, but you can't quite decide what it is. It's kind of, but it doesn't detract from the subject either. Like, what were you envisaging? Because is this quite close to the reference picture? What were you envisaging with this background?
Well, it was very much like that on the picture. The only thing different was it was more like that on the right hand side that you can see is a little bit blurry, isn't it? Well, between the ear and the left hand side of that picture, you see is more detail. Could you see possibly rocks there?
Yeah, it's kind of like it sort of looks a bit like there's something behind it with shape.
That's right. Well, my idea was to still have the out of focus idea, which you would get in all photography would do that. They would blur the background. But I wanted to make it just a little bit more obvious. I didn't do it on the other side. The reason is I wanted that to be darker on the right-hand side. But on this side, I thought I'd do that. And I think it came off very well. I can see rocks because I intended to put the rocks in, but not, they were slightly different, but certainly no detail, not like there is on the original.
It's so interesting. It sort of makes you question, what environment is this in? You know, when you're looking at it, it's a picture that you can study and ask those questions. I think you've done a really good job of creating that mystery around it. It's fantastic. I'm going to pull that off the screen. You did another picture. Do you want to talk a little bit about the other one that you did, Dad?
Yes, I've got it here. I've got it.
You've got it. I'm going to put it up on screen so people can see, and we can talk about this little.
Okay. Oh yes, good. Well done.
This little landscape that you did here. Now, what's special about this landscape, Dad?
Well, this is done on pastel paper. You can see the edge, which is grey, light grey pastel matte paper. Now, I've used pastel paper before for watercolors, but I thought, I wonder if pastel matte would work the same way. So this was an experiment, really. And I used a light grey pastel matte, but it's not very big, this. It's not quite A5 size, so it's quite small.
You can show us, can't you?
Hey? Oh, yes, I can show you the picture there.
Upside down.
Looks better upside down. No. Yeah. Now that's the size of the picture. So there's my hand. You get an idea from that. That's the size. Now, what's different about it? Well, I use watercolor. I use watercolor like a watercolor wash, really. Most of what you see there, except the only difference was that tree, that was two trees in the middle, the fairy type trees. They weren't, I didn't put that in watercolor. That's all been done with pastel pencil, which means once I put the watercolor on, I then went over the top of it with pastel pencil. I've done this before. This is not the first time I've done it, and I've showed it before. But I love the freedom of watercolor. And again, we're talking about trees again, aren't we? My goodness, there's a few there. Very difficult to do. And what makes this even more difficult is you can't work on it very much. You've just got to, once you put the watercolor on and you leave it to dry, obviously, and you can come back again, and then you can put the pastel pencil on top of that and vary it a little. But you've got to, again, you've only got a limited amount of room to maneuver. If you overdo it, it won't work. Because bear in mind, you've already put colour on there, and if you're going to put more there, you've got to be careful. So this was an experiment, and I think we are going to show this. Originally, it wasn't. It was a forerunner of another picture, which I'm in the process of organising now, which is going to be on. Do you want me to show it to you?
Sure.
Go on, yeah, go on. I don't know how you're not going to get this. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it very well.
Oh, we can see it.
Can you see it? It's a sketch. That's just all it is at the moment, a sketch. Same colour paper though. It's the light grey pastel matte paper. Now, that's going to be a picture of one of my favourite artists of all time. I'm just trying to remember who he is. Anyway, I shall very soon. But what he did, Steve, he travelled the country and did with watercolours in, I would think it's sort of early 1900s. It was the early part of the night. Oh, A.R. Quinton. I've still got it. A.R. Quinton. And he went all around the country doing little watercolours. Now, the idea was they were turned into postcards. And I'm sure if you search for A.R. Quinton on the internet, you'll see many, many pictures he's got. And I've interpreted quite a few of them. This was another one, because I was thinking if I could do something like I'm showing you on the screen now, but in a bigger form, then I think it'd be interesting for people. And this is what it's all about, really, showing people, giving alternatives. And if you wanted to get into watercolour, this is the way to do it. But one of the things that you'll look at those clouds. Now, would you credit that as watercolour?
You couldn't do watercolour like that, could you?
You wouldn't be able to. But I can. Now, what I do, though, Steve, is I put the... we've got the examples on our website. You'll be able to pick these up anyway. I put the blue, the mixture of blue and a bit of ochre, mix it together as a wash. That goes on. Make sure I make the top of it, although when I'm doing it like this. I start there and come down to the bottom, upside down. Now, why do I do that? Anybody got any ideas why I do that? The reason is, if I didn't do that, if I did it this way around and put the wash on, water would run down right there. Can't avoid that. And if it does, it leaves marks. Do it upside down, it doesn't. And so you start with the light colour here, the blue, a wash, and then when you get to the bottom, you use a slightly stronger blue, which is already made up on the palette, and put that on as well. Then you leave it for a little while, not very long. Then I go back with a tissue. I've got lots of tissues here. I'm sure people, I'll scrunch it up like that, and I dab those clouds out with the tissue. Do they look like that when I finish? No, they don't. Because once I've done that, bear in mind that this is still wet. Damp, should I say, not wet. It's damp. Because once it dries out, you can't do anything with it. Then I use a paintbrush. I'll get one of them out as well, shall I? I can reach across. Not that one, Colin. That one, Colin. And then I put water on and dab that out with water. And it gets as close as possible to what you see there. However, because I can put pastel pencil on top, which I do, I put the white pastel pencil back in, and then I use the 230, which is a bluey grey, lightish to medium bluey grey, and that gives you the clouds. There you are.
Yeah, you can see that sort of texture to the clouds, that shadow, you can see that grey that's gone in there. And I bet that's a hell of a lot easier to do that when you've got a pastel pencil in your hand and all of the basics in there with watercolour.
You put that on with a brush. You don't put that on, you just put that on with a brush. That's a good one to show.
Yeah.
Did you see, can you go really close, Steve, or not? Is that, yes, that's good. Now, if you look at it, you can see the pastel, can't you?
So interesting.
Surface.
Yeah. So is this new picture going to be watercolor and pastel?
Yes, watercolor pastel. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Watercolor.
Exciting.
I would probably rather say that it's a watercolor wash. I don't put too much detail on. I put the wash in. People will have to look at the video when we do it. They can see what I'm doing.
Yeah. For this one, we're going to watch some of the footage back, and we're going to talk about it and talk about what Dad's doing, just to kind of just talk through what this wash is and what it looks like and stuff. And it's so interesting to see you do that on pastel mat opposed to a watercolor paper as well. And that obviously would give you a lot more, because pastel mat is a different texture. It gives you a lot more to work with when you go and put the pastel on, because pastel mat can take so many layers. So I'm excited to see what you can do with a full-blown picture. Well,
it's going to be very interesting, this one. This one is not quite A4 size, but near enough. And it's going to be very interesting to do. So I'll show you, and people following us will be able to see this unfold.
Love it.
Over the next weeks.
Love it. Excellent stuff. Well, thank you everyone for being part of our first live stream podcast. I hope it's been interesting and enjoyable for you. If you want to join in future episodes, keep an eye on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. It should notify you when we're live, or we'll try and give you a heads up when we are going live, so at least you can sort of plan it in your day and see if you can come and tune in and watch us live. But thank you everyone for watching and for listening this week. We'll be back next week with another episode. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Enjoy your week.